Paul Arafage, Mom Spaghetti, Paul Arafage.
His palms were sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti. Fellow Toastmasters, these are the words of renowned poet Eminem. Have you ever felt like Mom Spaghetti was making a comeback? I felt this many times through my life, but in particular, these words describe my journey to how I became a stand up comedian. It started several years ago. I was in church, not in church, just outside of church, in my car. And I got out of my car and I was looking in the mirror, making sure all the hairs were in the right place, making sure my shirt was straight. And then I looked over to my left and I saw a clown. This was your classic clown. He had the red nose, the suspenders, those big floppy red shoes. I didn't know it at that time, but this clown was going to be my closer. You see, I was at a church carnival about to make my stand up comedian debut. And so I followed the host of the organization to the stage and I got up there. I had my jokes in hand, I was ready to go. I delivered the performance of a lifetime. And then I looked up at the audience of just one little girl. She was eating her ice cream, looking at me, judging me, confused about what just happened. And to be honest, I was confused too. I had no idea what just happened. I was terrified. I swear, if that little girl was going to heckle me in that moment, I was going to have a nervous breakdown. It was my job to introduce the clown at that point. I read his resume. It is long and extensive. He performed in schools, he performed on cruise ships. This guy was a professional. And when I called him, he came onto that stage. He owned the space that he was in. And the first thing he did was he called over everyone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, come on up, watch me perform. I'm a clown. Not only was he funny, he was juggling bowling balls. He was pulling string out of his pocket. He was balancing a ladder first on his nose and then on his chin. I was looking at him dumbfounded. How can I compete with this? I know that he's a clown, but in that moment, I've never been more depressed. This dream that I've had ever since I was a child, I could feel it slipping away. I was stuck. I was really struggling at that point. But then I thought about that famous poet, Eminem, and the next line in his poem reads like this: He's nervous, but on the surface, he looks calm and ready. I didn't give up. I knew that I had stumbled, but a stumble is still a step. I knew I had to do my homework, so I went to the library, not to read books, because they had an open mic. When I went there to perform, there were people playing music, singing songs, reading poetry. The whole thing was so intimate and so beautiful. And then there was me. And I spoke for 5 minutes about toilet paper. The room was silent. You could feel the tension and the awkwardness in the air. So, yes, I had stumbled again, but I remembered a stumble is still a step. I was moving forward. I did some more research and I looked into the current events. At that time, there was that huge trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I wrote down some jokes. I developed some good, solid material about that. And then my next opportunity to do an open mic came at a bar. And let me tell you, this was the perfect place because I needed a drink at that point. When I walked into that bar, I felt at home immediately. The audience was young, most of them were drunk. How could I go wrong? I went up there, I presented my material, and I was met with applause and laughter. It was the most beautiful sound I ever heard in my life. Not only that, but the comedian who went up after me, she even referred to my materials during her act, and she referred to me as a comedian. This was the only validation that I ever needed. Fellow Toastmasters, don't be afraid if you're feeling mom's spaghetti coming up for a second time. What I learned is that mom's spaghetti sometimes tastes better the second time around. Remember that a stumble is still a step. Don't give up on your dreams. My journey to becoming a stand-up comedian, it's not embarrassing. It wasn't even distracting. I enjoyed the experience, and I know there is still so much more for me to learn. Don't give up on your dreams. Keep stumbling and stepping forwards. Whatever you do, keep moving forward. Back to you, contest chair.